Today we're going to talk about magazines and clips and how they're different. Stick around. Thanks for joining us on Shoot of the Series. My name is Thorell from Firearms Education and Training, and we just want to thank our subscribers. We're getting good traction, and it's because the subscribers and the comments that really help push this along. Today, we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to talk about the difference between magazines and clips. Now, within the culture of shooting, it's almost become slang to call everything a clip, but they're very different. And if you've got any friends in the military, they will be absolutely adamant that a magazine is a magazine and a clip is a clip. So we wanted to spend a few minutes to tell you about them. Now, for example, when we're talking about a clip is generally thought of as a spring steel device that actually holds and contains the cartridges lined up in one particular orientation. They've got little clips here that hold them so that the bullets can't just sneak off. But these are designed so that you can carry around a multitude of these because they're much lighter than carrying an entire magazine. And the way these are used are actually to charge or prime a magazine. Now, the question is how do you get this to go into this? Well, it starts off by using what we call a spoon. And a spoon is a pre-bent guide that normally comes with the box of ammunition so that you never lose these. And the way the spoon works is it goes on the back of the magazine. There's actually a little cutout here on the magazine, so this will slide on and act as a retainer. So it's not coming off once it comes on. And then to make it all go, what you're going to do is you're going to take the clip and it's going to line up within the magazine where there's some little grooves that hold it steady. And what you're going to do to make this go is you're going to take your thumb, push down really hard, and what's going to happen is all of these cartridges are going to end up going into the magazine. Hopefully I can do this and not screw it up, so bear with me. Then what you do is you remove the clip, you remove the spoon, and for the most part, you got a full magazine, all charged up and ready to go. So that's how it all works. And when you're done, you end up with an empty clip and a full magazine. Sometimes soldiers will reuse these, and they'll actually use this as a scraping tool when they're inside their AR-15, or I'm sorry, their M16s for cleaning off carbon. So nothing goes to waste. This becomes a tool later on. Now, for beginners, sometimes it can be kind of tough to load a magazine, especially with brand new magazines. The spring can be very tight, and some people have a tough time with them. Now, I've got a magazine here for my H&K. You guys have seen me shoot this a bunch of times. And one of the things we want to talk about are some different techniques for how to load them. And I'm just using dummy rounds today. Makes it nice and visible. But what we want to do is we want to start talking about the magazine, its various parts and its various functions. You're going to notice, if you come in closely, that this part right here that I'm touching with the screwdriver is called the follower. And the follower is backed up. It's got a spring behind it. So you have to depress that spring to make it go. And these parts right here, which actually retain the cartridge, are known as the magazine lips. And you've got to be kind of careful with those so they don't get deformed. You also have the body of the magazine, and this is known as the floor plate. And by pushing this in, you can see that spring loaded. This will actually slide off so that you can take the magazine apart for normal cleaning and maintenance. And it's a good idea to do that once in a while because it'll get filled up with dust. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you was in order to load a magazine, you've got to put the cartridges in it. And what I like to do as a technique is to hold it between my two fingers and then also my thumb, and to try to almost use my thumb like a hypodermic needle, pushing this way. And I'll use these two fingers as a guide to push it through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the two fingers on top, and I'm going to use the thumb to push straight down at the front part of the magazine and then backward. Now, for every round that you put into the magazine, it's going to get tougher because you're up against the pressure of the spring. So with follow-up rounds, what I like to do is I actually like to hold the back of the round down with my thumb like this. And that starts by taking a little bit of the pressure off, and then do the same thing we were just talking about before. You use the first two fingers as a guide, and you push down with your thumb in between them, and then back. And it's also easier to do it this way because both your thumbs are usually pretty strong, and you've got a lot of pressure you can exert when you're pushing thumb towards thumb. So it becomes fairly repetitive, and I can actually do this without necessarily watching it just because I've been doing this so long. Now, for new magazines, it's going to be a chore. So when you take your new pistol out to the range, you're going to want to do things like, for instance, I like to use a label maker and actually mark my magazines. So usually, you know, like HK number 1 through 3, and that way, if for some reasons I start having a malfunction with one particular magazine, it's like, oh, I'm having a problem with number 1, I know to put that aside and try out number 2, because the weakest part of the system is the magazine. These are the first things that'll fail. Now, I also brought along a really cool device from a company called Uplula. And Uplula makes some really cool loaders. And the loaders are going to help you, especially if at the end of the day your hands are not quite so sore. So these are available in lots of different colors. They're around $30, but if it keeps your hands from getting sore at the end of the day, it's money well spent. So the way that you use the Uplula is it's mechanical. It works under spring pressure. So you're going to start by squeezing it, setting it over the top of the magazine, pushing straight down, and then dropping in a cartridge. You're going to let it out, go over the top again, push down, drop in another cartridge. And again, over the top, push down, drop in a cartridge, until it's full. Doesn't take much. You noticed I was basically doing it on my hip. And if you don't have a bench to lean it against, you can lean it on your hip. If you're standing up, I actually prefer to turn it towards me so I can drop it straight down, and that way gravity is my friend. Now, just going to unload this real quick, and you can see I'm just using my thumb to push them all out. Oopsie, we'll get that one later. Now, to take a magazine apart, it's no big chore. Most of them are pretty similar. The H&K is real easy, so I brought this one out. So what you do is, first of all, you make sure the magazine is unloaded. And what you do is you start by pushing this little plunger down right here, which is spring-loaded. And what that's going to do, along with these two little indentations here, is that's going to free that up. But you need to be really, really careful because it is under spring tension. So just ease it out nice and slow. You're going to see there's the base plate. You're going to see there's the little plunger assembly that kind of holds it in. And you're going to also see the magazine spring that comes out of it. And you're also going to notice, in the case of the H&K, it has the follower. This would be the follower right here, which is actually used to push the cartridges to the top, and the spring goes inside it only one way. So you can only put it back together one direction. And that's a big help, because with some magazines you have to have the spring in the correct direction or it doesn't work. HK is nice because they kind of give you a way to where you have to put it back together again the right way. So to put it back together again, all you're really doing is reversing the process. You're going to put the spring and the follower back into the magazine. Very carefully, you're going to take the the little plunger assembly, which kind of holds it together. Line that up. Kind of hold that in one position. And you're going to notice that there's a couple of, little ears. And those little ears are going to lock into position and actually hold this all together once it's set to go. And just like that, magazine's put back together, ready for loading again. Generally, while you have it apart, you might want to run a cloth with some sort of like a powder solvent just to clean stuff out so it's nice and shiny. Maybe a little bit of oil, just run it across with your finger so that you've got a nice even surface. And that'll help maintain your magazines and give them a nice long life. One of the things we also like to train people to do when it comes to magazines is when you're loading, actually put your finger on the top round as an index. And that way when you're loading, one hand will always find the other. You don't have to worry about somehow putting in the magazine backward and jamming up your gun. So it's a good habit to get into in the very beginning, because you're going to find that your reloads are going to be faster by feel than by sight. It takes a little practice, but eventually you're not even going to think about it. You're just going to do it. So anyway, that's pretty much the short and simple when it comes to magazines versus clips. Now, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. You'll notice I'm also wearing some merchandise from Shoot of the Series, and Steve dropped this off for me, and I'm glad he did, because it's so soft and comfortable I may never take it off. Anyway, if you haven't hit the subscribe button by now, hit that little button so that you'll be able to stay tuned in for whenever we put out a new video. We'd like to thank you all for coming in. You can check out all of our social media down on the lower third. And once again, thanks for joining us on Shoot of the Series. I'm Ed Thorell from Firearms Education Training. Y'all take care.